CADMapper of East Charles, just to kind of review some of the things that CADMapper can do and can't do. I've selected the outlines option for the roads, so it creates a contiguous shape of blocks, which are nice. Each of these is an individual block. Each of these is an individual group. The building outlines are not complete. Whoever volunteers their time to build building footprints in OpenStreetMap is what gets referenced when these files are made. And then a default height is then assigned to buildings that are unknown. So you can see the outline of Open Door. You can see the outline of the Episcopal Church, but nothing, I think, nothing terribly descriptive about the Rallies or the McDonald's. But you do get a little bit of an outline of the small park that's there. If you open up the tags window, which in 2019 they used to be called layers, in 2020 they're called tags. I've long diatribe about that change, but at any rate, it took a few minutes when the versions got updated to figure out what this meant. The CADMapper file will have these things separated, which is nice, because if you're only interested in one portion of this information, at least that is separated, so that information comes down as such. CADMapper is based in Europe, which means that the file is probably in metric. That'd be a problem, wouldn't it? Right? That would be a problem. So the first thing we do when we get a CADMapper file, we go to Window, Model Info, then we come down to Units, and then we change the measurement units to architectural. That's really all you need to do, is to change it from metric units to imperial units, and then the model is back into a language that you can understand in terms of measurements. Okay, so that's a nice thing there. So you just change the units there, save the file, and it's ready to go, so that it's no longer in metric. Sketchup does have geolocation services. If we make a new file here, oh, my windows are in the way. Move my windows out of the way. What we used to do when Google owned SketchUp, we would use Google Earth as a reference map, as a geolocation. When Google sold SketchUp to Trimble, they had to find a different mapping service. So if you go to File, Geolocation, Add Location, it will reference Digital Globe, and you have to be logged in with your Trimble account in order to use that particular function, but it will reference Digital Globe maps to create a geolocation, which would give you accurate shadows and things of that nature. This is geolocated. This map is geolocated, so the shadows are correct. So that is another advantage of the CADMapper map. I don't recommend building out your infill plan in this. I recommend building it off of your reference image or the plan that you drew. Set up all your massing on that drawing that you made, because you can scale it, because you can scale that map, scale that drawing. You have the ability then to place all of your buildings in the arrangement that you wish. Grab your buildings and then drop them into this. I think that's a better workflow rather than trying to build buildings from scratch on this CADMapper map. That would be my recommended workflow for that. But there are some advantages in terms of having some existing buildings and having all your road layout set here. It would save you time rather than laying out all of your roads from scratch. So it would do that. That said, let's get in here and just get this ready for being able to create some perspectives from it. So I will start. I think next I will go to Box and start grabbing some buildings. How to do that. One of these days I'm going to forget my phone when I come to work, and it's going to be a very long day. Under Plan 605, submissions and resources, SketchUp models and components. We have a few buildings that can work. Just browse through them, start downloading them to a external drive or flash drive, and you could start to assemble a digital library that you can use for a lot of different things. They aren't perfectly named, but we're doing our best to try to get a number of buildings together. The undergrads and I have been sort of assembling this library of buildings that we can start to use. I can copy that, paste it, and bring it into a block. It's probably scaled correctly, probably. But when you're working with components, often let's say you're in a situation where this is the direction you want to go, but it's not quite the full block that you're interested in. Some folks may elect to use the scale tool and then just stretch the model, which can make it, well, could work for some situations. Others are like, why is this model so distorted? I did have an undergraduate this past week who placed a senior center on one portion of the suburban lot that we were working on, and simply took the model and scaled it up. So all the windows were like 30 feet high, and the doors were 50 feet high. Not quite the direction we were hoping in terms of relative scale and the like. But there are other strategies that some of our alumni do when they do SketchUp. For instance, so let's say we bring this model in here. We start to mash them together. I could start just making a row of these, and just by slightly overlapping them, start to give the impression that this is a much larger building than the model previously suggested. So you just start mashing them together. That could work for your work in terms of existing components that represent the type of urban massing that you're after. Those start to read as a more contiguous street block. That might work for a lot of what you're doing. Other situations, you can take existing models and then start to overlap them and articulate them or turn them. Have them meet on corners or on elbows, and that will work as well. Sometimes none of that works, and you just need to mass it out yourself in terms of starting from scratch and building up a simple urban massing. But we are building a bit of a library here that could work for a lot of what you're doing. Myself and the undergrads have found a number of models that can work for a lot of different situations. So let's say get this guy here. And you were to merge them like this, for instance, or to line them up like this. That could start to read as a more composite mixed-use building. Okay, there's no shame in that whatsoever in terms of overlapping. Now, if they start to look really funky, then that's a problem. But you know, that could start. You could start to make something read. If you line things up properly, I think you can make things start to read as a composite mixed-use building. our purpose is to try to get some good perspectives from the ground floor. So that's our purpose. Could make this a group. Start to group these together. Make that a group. And then I can start to move it together as one piece. Just like in Gladiator. Together as one. I may choose, once it's built together like that, I might choose to rotate it around an axis. I could grab a corner like that and turn it around, move it into a different position on Charles, maybe there, maybe something to that. So just get comfortable downloading a couple of different components that might work for your purposes and kind of start to lay them out on the street. I'm going to eliminate that building there. I think I might use a pretty tall scale. I might ungroup this. Maybe I'll just move this together. Like that. All right. So this is the health clinic. This is Charles Street. This is the Episcopal Church. Can't remember what this is. We're starting to add some more density on this side of Charles. Park is in the background. The church would be in the background as well. Let me make sure that my tags are right. Get some tags going. I want to make sure these buildings are on, which should be a new layer. New buildings. Anytime you get in a situation where you're bringing in stuff and you're not sure which layer it's on, just right mouse click on it, go to Entity Info, and then you can tell it which tag or layer that it should be on. So I'm now pushing that to a new buildings layer. So anytime you're working and you're not sure which layer you're actually on or where this new stuff is coming in, you can always click on an entity and push it to the layer that you want it to be on. That way you have the ability to turn layers on and off. I do need a decent floor. This model came in all white, which was interesting. So I do want a neutral color as a floor. I do want perhaps a little bit of landscaping. So I will start to do that. Maybe there's some lawn involved. The materials, landscaping, there's a few grasses that are already built in. Sometimes you want to mass out your own buildings, so that's There may be a situation on this next block where we're making a proposal for something that doesn't quite work. If we were to mash together a few Frankenstein models and do that, I would then, on the new buildings layer, I would start to draw that. And then this could be based off of your drawing. This could be based off of your memory. Either way, it works. I do recommend you would do a freehand drawing like this off of your sketched plan and then bring it in to the model. But for the sake of the demonstration, I'm just going to go for it. Once an entity is enclosed, you grab the push-pull tool and you pull it up. I pull it up. I think I'll pull it up 48 feet. I then can add, there may be a mechanical penthouse or an elevator core. There may be skylights, there may be things on the roof. I'll take the offset tool, I'll pull in from that edge, that composite edge, about 1 foot. I'll push this down. I'll grab this roof and push that down just a little bit. Like that. That would represent a flat roof with a perimeter parapet. And if you wish, that can become a green roof at that point. So some small, simple operations like that can also work for basic urban massing. So drawing that line, pulling it up, starting to add some wisdom in terms of its scale or small components, elevator penthouses, mechanical penthouses, things of that nature that we could see from the roof. Start to give it a realistic look and feel. When I'm down here now, I want to, I don't want to go to this level of detail. That's not necessary, but we do need to perhaps articulate numbers of floors so that any perspective view, any plan view would articulate number of levels that that building would have. In an urban situation, the first floor always has a taller floor, finish floor to finish floor. So don't think 12 feet, think in the range of 16 to 18 feet for that first floor, which would be your commercial space or your office space or that first floor. That is more traditional in the sense of a taller first floor. Subsequent residential floors can be in the realm of 11 to 12 feet. To do that, I grab our measuring tool like so, and I start to pull up a guideline. So let's say I'll pull that up to 18 feet. The next guideline will be 12 feet and 12 feet. And then, as you can see there, that would be a commercial first floor on the main level, and then 2 additional residential floors, plus a parapet and roof line, and any additional mechanical stuff or stuff like that that's on the roof. So this would start to represent a 3-story building with a commercial first floor and residential upper floors. I then draw the lines from those guidelines. I then can delete the guidelines if I wish. I can also always turn them off at the end. You can turn off all your guidelines under view, and you can turn off all of your guidelines universally before you export. Sometimes, though, you just want to get them out of the way. And then once I've drawn the lines on one face, then I can pull them onto every other face. This way, no matter where we are in the model, this is representing a very simply massed mixed-use building. This is where I made the mistake. That'll be fun. I'll just do something with this. Make a little corner. do that for all sides of your building, and then you can save this building as a component and add it to your library. You want to go into further detail, that's fine. You don't have to be an architect here, but you may want to add a few more features to it, articulated entrances or things of that nature, or the beginning of storefronts. All right, I'm going to turn off all of my other layers. Just new buildings. Need to make new buildings the active layer. I can remember how to do that. If I can remember how. Just want to double check and make sure these are all on the right layer, so I'll select them from the left. Entity info. Entity info. Oh, not what I wanted to happen. Entity info. Just make sure that they are all on the right layer. Make sure that's on the right layer. So much of that ended up on the untagged layer. So I need to make that the active layer. Turn everything back on. And we've got some things, got some good things happening now. Let's say we get in a situation where we want to use this new building a couple of times. We can select it from the left. Make that a component. So you give it a name. U-shape. Now that's something we can use several times in the model. Copy that. You can just copy that to the paste board and paste it in different spots. You can also paste it in place, set it there. I'll copy it again, copy, paste in place, move it on axis from there. I can grab the scale tool. I can grab these two middle axes and smoosh it and make a mirror image of it. Move that into place. Before you know it, your plan gets pretty populated pretty fast. That. I can make that a component. So this new one I can make that another component, or I can just keep it as the existing component. Paste that in place. Set that, slide that up there. Oh, not quite. And you're taking over Muncie now. We're taking over. These are all the same component. So if I right mouse click on that and edit the component, if I make changes to this component, it will make changes, updated changes to every instance of that component. Well, that can be fun too. That can be super fun. Always having fun in Funcy. All right, let's say I put some sort of feature on this corner. Some sort of thing that starts to articulate the corner. Sketchup has, if you were a good geometry student in middle school, you'll appreciate this, because SketchUp respects a lot of the same things about connecting stuff together. You can make these pyramidal shapes, pyramidal roofs. As you work, it will fill in. I have to select it though and paint that a certain color. Select those things. Paint them a certain color, like that. And then I'll zoom out here. You'll see that it updated every instance of that component. So it added those corners to every instance of that component, even though it was they were mirrored, even though they were inverted. So you can lay out a plan really fast when you start to work at this level. So if you are done with that, you can always make a component unique within the model, and then it's its own thing again. So for instance, if we don't want a green roof in that situation, we'll just paint it back white again and it will show up as such. Okay. Make sense? So using existing buildings or massing out new buildings, you can start to really populate a map quite quickly so that we can start to get adequate street views going. I'm going to copy this over. Oops. Copy that, paste in place, and then move it over here. Grab a portion of it, just smoosh it there onto the block. So we're turning East Charles into Barcelona here. It's going to have definitely a Barcelona feel. Right now is a very dark gray. I'm going to paint that a softer gray. There's a lot of gray at the moment. And then if I have the large toolbar set, under tool palettes, large tool set, we want to make sure we have that large toolbar visible. If you don't have it visible, definitely want that, because we want our little position camera tool here. We're going to put him now just east of the McDonald's, get him down there, and we can start to look at the street view of what we have proposed. That's the urban character you're after, you are winning. If that's not the urban character you're after, then there's a chance here to explore that a little bit less severely. But that is a definite change for the neighborhood. We'll put it that way. I'm not comfortable with that, so I will find another model. Maybe come back to this one. Copy that. Paste it into the model. Place it. Just layer a couple of those together, like that. Maybe just grab one of these and move it slightly east, or set it back just a little bit. Create a little bit of setback. That's an odd look. Don't like it. That's all right. We'll place a different one. Try this one again. Paste that in here, like so. And we'll try it again. We'll try the street level view once again. I'll position the camera down here at the street level and see if that's the character that we're after. Got my fog settings on. Put the fog on there. Probably got my shadows somewhere. Turn those on. Today is, where are we in? We're in November now. 11 set. There we go. 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. Just enough solar angle here. Let's get it to about, see, the sun is very low in November, so you're going to get some shadow castings there. If we move it to summer, shorter shadow castings, and you get something in that realm right there. Take the eyeball in the toolbar, move it around just a little bit. Get a camera view position at your, it's good. And before I do anything else, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this model as something. East Charles Experiment Fall 20. Before I do anything else, I probably should save the model. All right. Let's go to Google Earth. Every time I type in Muncie, I sometimes type Munich. Very different city. Needless to say. One of my favorite cities in Europe. I'm picking East Charles, one, because several of you are working over there. Second, because the church, St. Lawrence Church, is a definite landmark in many camera views that one might expect to take. So let me grab our street view person, drop him in the vicinity of East Charles by the park. And I want a nice clear view of the church for background. Yes? Makes sense? Make this window fairly big. Not sure what our Google camera's doing here. That's pretty good though. That's a nice clear view right there. A lot of big trees there, but we'll get a nice clear view of our church for background vista. I'll save this image. It's a high resolution image. Nice big image, 4,800 pixels. Now this works for making perspective views with the church in the background, but as some of you have discovered now, there is no model, massing model for the church for the view of it, how it fits in with the plan. So you're gonna have to do your best, make the church, pull it up, pull up a steeple, so you can have that as a massing study in the background of your model. That is something folks who worked in the St. Lawrence side, like, I mean, I have to build the church? Yeah, you got to build the church. But you're not building the church for it to appear in a perspective view. You're building the church for it to appear on the model as massing with your proposal. So you don't have to build it exactly. Okay. If, however, you find a single steeple Catholic church that looks very similar, then you've scored, you've won. You can just place it there. There may be an equivalent single spire church out there on the 3D warehouse that you could place in there where St. Lawrence is. Remember, single spires churches are parishes. 2 spires are seats of a bishop, usually, maybe. Okay. A cathedral is never a cathedral unless it's the seat of a bishop. Fun fact, okay? A cathedral is not a cathedral unless it happens to have the seat of a bishop. Okay, so cathedrals in Indiana, there's one down in Ferdinand, that's the seat of a bishop. There's one in Lafayette, there's the seat of a bishop. Is there one in Fort Wayne? Maybe? Then that would be the seat of a bishop, and would be the head of a diocese for that region. Lutherans do not have cathedrals, because we don't have bishops. But so, anyway, fun things that, fun conversations I've had with students in Germany standing in front of a large Lutheran church. That's a nice cathedral. I'm like, it's not a cathedral. We don't have bishops, so. Either that or we could be talking about chess. All right, so we've got that view. Let's get our camera positioned. So we're walking down the street. Move this around. Get ready for export. Export 2D graphic. Portable network graphic. Send it to the desktop. Options. About 7,000 pixels. You know, between 6 and 7,000, it's just a comfortable size. Line scale multiplier of 1/2. Anti-alias transparent background. Okay. Export. And I can close up SketchUp. Just want to review. I'll review that PNG image there. That's what it looks like. Okay. The line scale multiplier is half because it makes those line weights thinner. See what it did when we exported it? Didn't look like that in the model, but these are the line scale multiplier of half gives you thinner line weights, so they're less distracting when you make the export. Did this export yet? It did, okay. All right. Close out Google Earth Pro. So to estimate the height of a building, we can go into Google Earth. Let's get some measurements of the St. Lawrence Church as a good example. The 3D buildings layer has to be turned on. So in the lower left here, I've got terrain and 3D buildings turned on. I'll get in close to the church, which may make it uncomfortable, but it's all right. Under the ruler, we've got line, path, polygon, circle, 3D path, and 3D polygon. So if I just grab a line, I can try this. I can go from top of ridge. That won't work. So it has to be the path. So path, I believe it's path, no, be 3D path. That's it. 3D path, we go from here to top of ridge, 62 feet. Clear it out. 3D path. The brick portion of the bell tower, about 77 feet. From top of spire, estimate that, about 137, 138 feet. So with the 3D path tool, you can get an estimation for heights of buildings by measuring to the cornice line, by measuring to ridge, or measuring to tower. So that's our, that is a major time saver. So then to build St. Lawrence Church, you would want to know a couple of things. First mass, from sidewalk to cornice line, I've got to clear this out, clear that out. From sidewalk to cornice line, that's about 45, 46 feet. So that would be a box you pull up. Ridge then would be 62 feet, so that would be 62 minus 46, that would be the ridge line that you pull up, and then build the tower separately. So there's a couple measurements you need to basically pull up a box, pull up a ridge line, and then build the tower next to it. That's a complex building. Other buildings are not as complex, but really all you need is a general height, a ridge, and a tower to make it look like a church in your massing model. You don't need every ridge. You just need to have it be convincing in the massing model that it's a church. Fly over to the Masonic Temple, Cornerstone Arts Center. Former Masonic Temple. This is now Cornerstone Center for the Arts. Similar fashion, we grab 3D path, and with the general mass of the building from sidewalk to cornice line, about 84 feet or so. The only real derivation from that is the tower itself. So again, that would be a big box with then a tower extruded next, either within it or next to it. But yes, the 3D path measuring tool is a time saver because this will give you estimates of building heights. But the really true way to truly measure a building is to count brick. there are new tools and 3D scanners and things like that, but a historic preservationist might tell you the most accurate way to measure a building is to get out there and count the bricks. Okay. I'm going to do this one in Photoshop. We did the section in Illustrator. Let's try this one in Photoshop. So we don't need to create a new one. We need to, I'm going to start from the PNG that we exported. And you can see that it has a transparent background, which we want. We want to open up the St. Lawrence view that we exported. I want to double click on background and start deleting away the sky. Don't need the whole thing, so I'll crop it down. Save this as a PNG file. It has to be saved as a PNG in order to preserve that transparency. So this is now a St. Lawrence Church PNG. Go back to our first one, and we can start making layers. Call that the St. Lawrence layer. Place embedded, the St. Lawrence PNG. Tuck it in behind layer 1. Scale it to where we want it. As prominent as you wish. Yeah. That looks pretty good right there. Okay. Get the idea? Yeah? All right. So images of existing buildings can be incorporated. Okay. My rulers are on. My rulers are on. View rulers are on. I'm going to grab a ruler and pull it down to where I believe the horizon line is. See where the horizon line is? It's 2/3 up of a door. It's right about the eye level of the camera viewer. This is where a person with a camera, they would be shooting at their eye level. That's where the horizon line is. That's where the vanishing points are. So I'm going to drag this guideline to about that 2/3 point of a door. The door is about 7'4". The eye level is going to be about 5.5 feet above the ground, depending on your height. So that's our horizon line. See how the vanishing points all point to it? Because the vanishing point is on the horizon line. All right. Then we go to box. We start grabbing some trees, some people, some cars. Find a nice sky. sky layer. Place embedded. Slide its opacity down. Tuck it in underneath behind the church. Grab some trees. Foregrounds, we got some foregrounds we can use. We're not dealing with rice fields here, but this is an urban setting. But if we weren't, we could, in a more rural or suburban setting, we could start to use these as grasses, as foreground elements, but we're definitely in an urban setting, so those aren't going to work. I do have some brick pavers, though, we could use, so I'll download those. Again, as you travel around and you see good streetscape elements, good lawns, good skies, take out your camera and just start recording them. Start putting them into a library so you can use them in the future. Cutouts. I need a couple of cars. I need some trees. Car has to be just the right angle. It's kind of tough because some of these cars are in elevation view or they're in perspective view, so it's a little tough. We want to get, I've been asking everybody to find more cars, so find really good cars that can work for this. There's a decent Nissan. There's a bunch of free PNG cars out there, but sometimes there's annoying pop-ups and sign-ups and phishing attempts and things like that. Hello? Yeah, go ahead. Coming in, Ezra. Everyone, this is Asra. Esra is famous in this studio because your PowerPoint was very nice, and they really enjoyed it, and they really were able to raise to the bar of your PowerPoint presentation. So they know your work, Esra. I need some shrubbery and some grasses as well. And there may be additional elements like there's other cutouts out there, flowers and street lights and things like that you may enjoy placing as well. All right, the horizon line is our reference, so all of our standing people will be referencing that horizon line. I'm going to go ahead and place embedded some of our cutout people. Get them relative to the horizon line. I want their eye level to be around that horizon line. Place embedded. I can scale them down, so no matter where they are, they could be in the middle ground or foreground. Just as long as their eye level is very close to the horizon line, it will work. If you want to modify them, you have to rasterize them. They come in as smart objects. You can see that indication here in the layers menu. That little box in the lower right of that little box there is indication that they are smart objects. If you want to modify them, you have to rasterize them first. Rasterize, rasterize. If your cutouts are not ethnically diverse, we need to find examples that are ethnically diverse. So nonscandinavia.com. Please avoid these first ones here. Go to originals. There's a disclaimer, understand, and it will send you to where the originals are. Those are the full resolution, photorealistic people. This lady here has been in tons of renderings around the world for the last few years. But they are hidden behind, not a paywall, but they're hidden behind a disclaimer. So that we can get more diverse people in our library. This is definitely a New York food cart, but can work. Some of these have to may need to be modified slightly. You may need to cover up. If it says New York, or if it says something specific to a city or region, you may sometimes have to modify that in Photoshop before you use it. Okay, so that's one. That's not the only resource out there, but there are a good number of good cutout places that have more ethnically diverse folks to use. Remember that you need to place them around the horizon line so that their eye level is with your eye level. Doesn't matter where they are, just as long as their eye levels are contingent with the horizon line. And you can start playing with the layer order and the like. Rasterize them. I can also link or merge these layers. You can link them, which keeps them separate but allows them to perform together. You can also merge them, which makes them all one layer. I'm going to shift their opacity down just a little bit. What this does is that it kind of tells the viewer, remember, we're looking at a rendering. We're not looking at a photorealistic thing. It also, if you're covering up a lot of your details or your architecture, you can make the people just a little bit ghosted. It takes the focus away from them, puts it back on the proposal itself. Little tricks we do, we're not intended for them to be ghosts, but at any rate, notice I forgot to rasterize this one. So I'll merge those. I'm going to shift this down there, and then I'll merge them. Sometimes I like to put a blur on our people, which just takes the focus and attention away from them and puts it back on the development proposal. Some folks find this a little trippy, but I find it effective so that the focus is not on the scale figures itself, but on that sense of motion. It puts the focus back on the foreground, middle ground, background, and the context of the place. We had a brick pavement thing here. I'm gonna select this. I'm gonna push this a little bit. I'm gonna transform this using the perspective tool. And I'm just gonna smush that. A little bit. Just give that a smush. I'll take a lasso. I'm going to pull this. No, I think I will just take this. I'll just take a slice like this. That. Cut that. I'm going to paste it in on its own layer. There. Put it underneath everything. And then once I bring it in, I can smush it or skew it or distort it further if I need to, just so it's right there. Just for some effect on the ground or a particular paving pattern on the sidewalk, or whatever you're after, just in terms of the look. Let's try. Let's undo all that. Try something else. What should we try? What should we try? Well, I can flip this over. That. And let me try cutting here. And this is true for, there's images out here of different paving elements. I encourage you to start grabbing a few of those. Put that on its own layer. Flip that over. Please don't stop the music. Please don't stop the music. That's a little wild. But if it follows the perspective, it's a little wild. I don't know. That's not bad. There. Okay, a few trees. It's a little wild. You can always just turn the opacity down. Just keep it nice and clear like that. That's why I bring things on their own layer, because sometimes I just want to change the opacity of those things. All right, we need to place some trees. This bundle of grasses here is really nice because it covers up things, covers up mistakes, starts to separate middle ground from backgrounds well. Just place those in the right place. See what that does? It covers up some foreground, middle ground elements you may not be sure of. See what that does? See what that? There. Okay, I'll just keep placing. Put this behind the gentleman here. Copy that. Another one in there. Maybe give that a tree grate. Right now that tree is sitting in nothing. Maybe it needs a little bit of something. Rasterize that. It just needs a little something. Trees need grates, they need air, they need water. So I'll just give that a little something for that to sit on. Doesn't have to be hugely specific, but it's helpful just for the realism of the scene. Oh dear, did I cover it up? I did. Ooh. That's okay. I'll just copy another one in its place. Not to worry, I'll just cover it up with its own self. Change it in the layer order, put that there. All right, rasterize all these. And then you can decide, do we want the trees to be opaque? Do we want them to be slightly less opaque? We can do the same thing we did to our people before that. All our cutout trees, merge those. All our cutout trees here. Merge those. Back to the full fit on screen. So all of our trees are now on a single layer. We can change that opacity, get those down just a little bit so you're not covering up everything. That's one way. The other way is to right mouse click on the layer, click blending option, and pick blending mode multiply. All right, see what that does? It's like layering the trees as a film on top of your architecture. So you're not, again, not covering everything up. See how the trees have more of a, they don't cover everything up that way, okay? All right. Now save this. Save it as two things. I would save it as a PNG. PNG would preserve the transparency of the sky and the transparency of your background, so you can place it on a colored film or place it on a colored slide. Okay, that's what that would do. Save a, and it saves it as a copy when you do that. Save it as a Photoshop document. It preserves all the layers exactly in the order. It's a big file, so it's still saving. When you save it as a JPEG, it'll take all the layers in their current order and smash them together, and it becomes a single image with a white background, and then you can place that or email that anywhere. It's a big file. Big file. But when you have an image completed like this, always save it as a Photoshop document, because it will exactly what you want. Save it as a PNG, it will preserve the transparency of the sky in the background. Save it as a JPEG, and it will smash all the way together into a file. Okay, so I always encourage you to save different file types and different situations for the future if you ever want to come back to this image again. When you save it as a JPEG, you then open that JPEG up and you can down save the size of the file. This is a very large file right now. It's not something you can drop in an email and nothing that you need to drop into a PowerPoint. But if you save it as a JPEG first and then change the size of it, I always label that in my file order as a low-res image. That becomes something that you can email, something you can put in a PowerPoint. And it preserves all of the details of these very large files for other reasons. But this file is probably 35 megabytes. That's not something you want to drop in an email. You're going to want to down save it and change the file size to something that's manageable, so you can put it in an email, put it in a PowerPoint, put it in a newsletter, or the like. Okay. So let's save the JPEG. What's nice is that Photoshop will just assume that you want this to be a copy, which is correct. That'll save, and then I'll change the image size now. This is now 7,000 pixels, so I'll save a low-res version that's considerably smaller. Let's say it's only 1,000 pixels at 150 dpi. Much smaller file. I'll save that as a JPEG. And that is what you use for your PowerPoints and your emails. I'll relabel it low res. And that's part of a sort of a file management ethic or a file management system that allows you to transport this imagery quickly without bogging down your servers and your emails and everything like that. Save the large scale imagery for future work. Down save the file as smaller files to communicate with others. And there is the final image. And there was much rejoicing.